Thank you very much. I have the best job in the world. I get to talk about Israel all day, every day. That's my job. And I'm especially excited because my son, who's just turned 21, is about to make Aliyah and join the IDF. I just want to say one thing off topic about BDS. The Jewish Virtual Library that I run published today a statement signed by 131 Jewish organizations from around the world, including AZM and many others here, condemning BDS. There's no debate, there's no division on condemning and opposing BDS. I also write a book you may have heard of called Myths and Facts. And one of the myths and facts, or myths about the development of Israel, as the ambassador said last night, is this notion that Israel came about as a result of the Holocaust. A related myth is that Israel is a result of the all-powerful Jewish lobby in the United States. Well, ironically, the Balfour Declaration came about in part because British anti-Semites believed that the Jews were all-powerful. And the fact that they thought that by supporting something that Jews in America would believe in, the Balfour Declaration, might bring the United States into their support in World War I. And as you heard, there were only 7,500 Zionists at the time, the ambassador said last night. So it wasn't a matter of the mighty Jewish lobby, it was the commitment of President Woodrow Wilson, who from this very beginning, long before the Holocaust, long before AIPAC, believed in the importance of creating a Jewish homeland in Palestine. And it was this support from the very beginning that marked the trajectory which we've now seen, where the United States and Israel become the closest allies among any Western powers, with the possible exception of the UK. Balfour, had he not had the support of the United States and Woodrow Wilson, certainly wouldn't have gotten the support for that declaration, let alone made it in the end. As you heard from Edwin, in 1922, the US Congress came out in support of the Balfour Declaration, which was then signed by President Harding. On the 15th anniversary of the Balfour Declaration, President Hoover expressed the hope for the establishment of a Jewish homeland. In 1937, on the 20th anniversary, FDR called Balfour the keystone of contemporary Reconstruction activities in the Jewish homeland. As you know, in 1947, Harry Truman supported partition. He was the first to recognize Israel as the Jewish state. In 1958, Eisenhower, who many people view as one of the most anti-Israel presidents in history, largely because of his opposition to the Suez War and forcing Israel to give up the territory it captured in 1956 and 57, actually turned out to be extremely pro-Israel by the end of his term, because he recognized that the only pro-Western power in the Middle East, the only country that the United States could rely on, was Israel. In the 1960s, we reached a new level of support and commitment to Israel when we sold our first offensive weapons to Israel in 1966 with tanks and Skyhawk jets. In the '67 war, Israel proved that it was a military power to be reckoned with. And that was one of the early points where the United States recognized that Israel could be a strategic asset. The very next year, Lyndon Johnson sold the Israelis Phantom jets, which marked a historic point where from that point till today, the United States believes in maintaining Israel's qualitative military edge over its enemies. In 1970, you had another landmark when Israel was prepared to come to King Hussein's rescue in Black September, and again proved that it could be a strategic asset. In the Yom Kippur War, the United States was prepared to come to Israel's aid, had a massive airlift, and from that point on, the United States has been providing multi-billion-dollar aid packages to Israel, and was a major moment in solidifying this military relationship. In the 1970s also, you had the peace treaty between Israel and Egypt, the disengagement agreement, and the establishment of the United States as the only broker possible of mediating peace talks between Israel and its neighbors. 1981, another major milestone. Ronald Reagan comes to power, the signing of the strategic cooperation agreements. From that point on, Israel has been seen as a major strategic ally of the United States. But it didn't stop with strategic issues. In 1985-86, you had the United States signing its first free trade agreement with the State of Israel, again, setting a precedent. Then, in the late 1980s, you had the first Memorandum of Understanding for joint development of the Arrow anti-ballistic missile program. Again, a major landmark, because from that point on, the United States and Israel have been closely working together to develop military technologies for our mutual interests. In 1999, you probably remember, the United States agreed with Israel to phase out economic aid. Israel no longer needed economic aid, but began to increase the amount of military aid, and this has continued under President Obama, who you may remember at the end of his term signed a record 10-year military aid agreement for a record $38 billion. Finally, you have President Trump, who's come into power, been here for just less than a year, but has already recalibrated U.S. policy from some of the policies of the Obama administration, come out very clearly in support of a strong U.S.-Israel relationship, in supporting Israel in its opposition to the Iranian nuclear program, in being much more tolerant of Israeli policies in the territories, and in siding with Israel on the major components of any future peace agreement. And so I think you can see that from the very beginning, the United States was the key to helping to bring about the success of the Balfour Declaration, and has been consistent in working with the Jewish people and with the State of Israel to strengthen and to nurture that first dream of a Jewish state that has become such a worldwide success that we are all proud of today. Thank you.